Hello, hello. How we doing today? Welcome back, everyone. How you feeling on this Sunday afternoon? Some big, a quiet international break, but I've got to say a big congratulations to all of our Irish friends and followers and viewers and watchers and things like that, because what an incredible pair of results for Ireland there in a huge, meaningful games for the potential qualification for the World Cup. And I hope you'll make it, because I'd be happy to see many of you over here in the States next summer for that World Cup. So big congratulations to all of our Irish friends. Quite impressive run of results. Also a quite impressive result for Portugal, sans Ronaldo. It's always funny how that works in recent times, where without Ronaldo, that Portuguese side is a different team in a good way. Kind of interesting how that works as well. And Bruno scoring his penalties, that comes at the right time as well for us too. I'm happy to see that. But that's crazy, Troy Parrott, because am I not mistaken? Where did he played? Yeah, he was at Tottenham. That's right. He was at Tottenham at the youth level for quite a long time. Never really got a chance. Bounced around a lot of the lower English clubs, and is in the Dutch league now. And look at that for Ireland. Quite impressive. I remember him being at Tottenham for whatever reason, even though he only made 2 appearances. That's where I always remember hearing about him first was at Spurs. But yes, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. We're going to talk about this midfield rebuild that's been confirmed. It's been a good week for news. I definitely timed my whole recruitment video on Wednesday at the right time, because since then we've just had regular back-to-back confirmations of United's plans, including rebuilding the midfield, and it's starting to shape up. Things are starting to appear. And look, it's very early. It's very early. Of course, it's going to be a while. These things can change over the course of this season. There's going to be heavy competition. There's going to be heavy, change. There's going to be potential. It's going to be about convincing players. It's going to be about convincing clubs. It's going to be about so much. But the plans are good. What are your thoughts on Nathaniel Brown from Frankfurt? I want to talk about him too, because we've had a couple of links to fullbacks, wingbacks, and Brown is, I think, one of the better options out there in terms of like a senior player. He's unbelievable attacking wise. Does a lot of stuff kind of like Ahmad, where I see him being a really top dueler, great carrying the ball. All of that.
Mickey van de Ven?
What about him? He's a great center back. I don't think we're going to get Mickey van de Ven. Confirmed? Is that here we go? No. The plan is confirmed. The plan is confirmed. Let's be clear with our little clickbait that we've got here, right? The plan is confirmed. We've seen enough. I mean, I know what the plan is. But the plan is confirmed. The execution, we're months away. We're months away from being able to say whether they can pull this all off or not. You know what I mean? That being said, one of the big reasons why United are looking at summer, and why we've kind of gotten as well the reports of summer, is because, as I shared like a month ago, we reached out, spoke to a lot of these guys, the big names, Baleba, Anderson, Wharton, assessing the situation with them, assessing the situation with their clubs. And the simple view was it's going to be unlikely that we can pull one of these players in January due to the clubs, for the most part. And most of them, to be fair, want to stick through their club in this January market, stick through the season, see the seasons through, but are looking for that big move in summer. All 3 of them, really. And so we did some of the groundwork on that. And that's one of the reasons why you've gotten these. We're unlikely to sign our main midfield targets in January, is because our main midfield targets are these guys, are these big players. Now, we do have alternatives and things like that. As we've kind of talked about all week, we've been talking about this. We've been looking at this. We've been discussing it. Like I said, you've got in the 8th position, I believe Anderson is viewed as, again, positionally not that important to totally delineate them, but I think he's viewed as more of an attacking in the midfield sense, whereas Baleba would be viewed as more the player they can put into that deeper role. Same with Wharton, same with some others. So remember, we've talked about the different traits that we want these midfielders to have. The deeper one being, good on the ball, intercepting play, breaking up play, positionally disciplined, great carrying it out of difficult spots, and then, the less needing as much passing. And then in the more attacking position, the more offensive position, more attacking, more, able to do the all-around role. And I think that if you were to set out your ideal targets for this based on profile alone, you would go with, obviously, what they looked at before, Baleba, and Anderson would be the other. And that would be your perfect midfield. Now, are there going to be alternatives to Baleba? Absolutely. Absolutely. And will United have to... One of the reasons they'll be looking at that with Baleba, as I've said before, is based on how he's playing, based on the view that he certainly is a player that, while there's a lot of talent there, it is raw, it is unrefined, he is struggling a little bit. They're not going to be paying 100 million for him based on the present value. So it's going to still come down to Brighton, an unknown in terms of what they're going to demand. Are they going to sit on it? Are they going to hold out for an extremely large fee for him and hope that it turns around and just say, we're not going to sell because we think next year he'll do way better and then we'll sell him for 120? Maybe. And that's why United are looking at alternatives, and that's why we have alternative guys. But it follows the strategy that we laid out this summer with Cunha and Mbeumo. Buy the best in the Premier League. Buy the really top talents from lower sides in the Premier League to rebuild the core of your team. We did it in the 10s. I think it's working. We're going to do it in the midfield. I think it's going to be a good plan. And we might just do it in the back line as well. But we'll talk about that another day. There's targets that align with that strategy, that I've been hinting at, but it's for another day. But there are targets in the back line that are similar. Take some of the best center backs from some teams a little bit lower down or a little bit less high profile, and from the Premier League. And so I think they really want to build a core that has a lot of those Prem proven players and pull them in to United. Now, there's obviously going to be alternatives because we don't know. We don't know how it's going to work out in the end with like I said, with this Baleba thing. That's where someone like João Gomez comes in, again, as an alternative to that kind of position. A good player, potentially more available, potentially more cost affordable. And if you can still get 2 midfielders with that plan, then that's great. Adam Wharton probably could be more cost effective. Don't know. Slightly different to Baleba, but a very, very good player for that kind of sitting role as well. So there's a lot of contingency there. And then in the 8 for Anderson, we've seen the other alternatives. We know Angelo Stiller, and we know that there's, guys like Ederson and maybe even Gallagher on a loan, not saying the permanent, but if he does really well, then obviously you'd have to think about it. And then obviously like ones like Keith Smith, things like that too. So a lot of work being done lining this up, but confirming these 2 positions that we're looking at. And we got a few stories. We got one from John Cross Saturday night, I think it was, kind of confirming this first and foremost, saying United are in the market for 2 big midfield signings, as I've said, next summer, with Elliot Anderson top of the list. But also Carlos Baleba, the other big deal in the frame. So you have to bear in mind, we're talking about 2 here, right? And again, it's that balance, rebuilding that full midfield moving forward. But John Cross claims that Anderson is now fully top of the list, and it says he's likely to cost less than Baleba. That's why he's seen as a good piece of potential business. Casemiro contract running down, would have to take pay cut to stay. They'd be interested in Conor Gallagher on loan. So yeah, it appears like we're ready to kind of do the same thing that we were doing before in the Premier League, buying up these best talents. And we also have, Fabrizio still confirming today, Carlos Baleba is the priority target for 2026. He's even more keen to join now. But it also says this, which we'll get to. Kobbie Mainoo is very interested in joining Napoli on a straight loan with no buy option or obligation. He wants to succeed at MUFC.
Wow, 4 months already with the international breaks.
Yes, indeed, Glenn. Thank you for that. Welcome back and appreciate you. The club have never considered letting him leave permanently. So like I said, on a few occasions, they really don't want to be rid of Kobbie. I think in an ideal world, they're going to move on Ugarte plus one of Casemiro or Bruno right now. That would be the plan. And add 2 top midfielders. And that gives them the type of options that they want in this team and the future in this team. But obviously, this is the thing about this whole story, right? Let's say Kobbie stays. Let's say he's unhappy with this competition with Bruno. Let's say Bruno does leave. It ain't going to get any easier. You're going to be competing with Elliot Anderson, who's better than you right now. You're going to be competing with guys like Baleba or Wharton or players who are effectively there. And that's my point on this whole Kobbie situation is that, I'm sorry, guy, it ain't going to get easier. That's why you have to accept this competition aspect of playing at a big club. Because even if Bruno leaves, we're getting 2 top midfielders that you're going to be competing against on a regular, ongoing basis, week to week, month to month, that you're going to have to earn a spot over. That's what it is like playing at a real club like United. I mean, look at Madrid. Look at the young midfielders they've brought in and these top talents and who they end up having to compete with to play. And how they just keep adding more, and there's always competition, and there's players who they're in and then they're out, and then they're in and then they're out. That's what playing at a big club. I mean, City was the same, right? Under Pep, you had no guarantees you were ever going to play in that team until you proved you're one of the best players in the world. So, this is what it means. This is what it means when a club is starting to be run competently. We've got to step back from player FC to a degree, and it doesn't mean we don't support the player, and it doesn't mean we don't want the player to succeed, and it doesn't mean we don't want him to, because I want Kobbie to stay. The club want him to stay. I want him to thrive. You're going to be competing for your place for the next 10 years, period, if you stay. That's it. You're going to be competing for your place. No matter what, if the club is run properly, everyone's going to be fighting for the place. Look at Cunha. Right now, we brought him in 60 million. One of the best forwards in the team last year. You know who he's competing with his place for? Šeško and Mason Mount. And he's not started every single game. And we just spent 60 plus million on him. And he's going to be competing with those guys every week for that place. And whoever is performing best among those 3, the 2 who are performing best and who are showing their best are going to play, and the other one isn't. And we're probably going to have more forwards in the future, and maybe even another striker in the future. It's like, you're at good teams that are run really, really, really competently, there's going to be a lot of competition. I get the Bruno thing, of course, because it's like Bruno is the captain. He never gets benched in the Premier League right now. We know that. But Ruben also said next season he would. But even if it wasn't Bruno, you're going to be heavily competing with really, really good players week in, week out at any top club. That's how it's supposed to be. Because a top club cannot be too sunk on one guy at any point in time, right? That's what we need to move on from, even with Bruno, even with Casemiro, even with any of our good players that we've had that have carried us for the last 6 years. We're all in agreement. We need to be at a point where we don't need Bruno every single game. That's how we'll know the club is good. When we can just rotate a guy like Bruno and we're still going to be good. And we don't need him every single week. And he's not, the best player in the team every single week. That's where the club need to be. And that means for everybody involved, you got to face the music on that. It's a fight every single day for your place. It's a fight every single day for your place. And I think that, and I have high hopes for Kobe, but it's going to be the same for our other youth players that start to come through. And there will be ones that come through. You're going to fight every single day for your place in that team. When it's right, that's how the levels are going to be raised. When this team is built, and we're in competitions every week, that's how it's going to be raised. It's going to be a dogfight for those positions. And that's how it should be. That's how you increase performance. That's how you raise the standards. You just drive that level up into the sky and have everybody pushing each other in that respect, you know? And that's where I think we're going. And that's what I think is necessary at the highest levels of competition, you know? And it hasn't been that way. Like, agreed, it hasn't been that way with Bruno either, where he's just automatically started every single game. I'm not saying that that's right either, you know? So but that's where we need to be in that situation, right? But clearly that's the direction that we are heading. And with Casemiro, as I said the other day, I still think it's likely he's going to leave because I'm not sure he's going to accept the money that we're on offer. He can agree a contract. By the way, Casemiro can agree a contract with anybody outside of England because I don't think he'll join another English club under any circumstances if it's not United, right? We can believe that with Casemiro. 45 days, he can agree a contract with an MLS team. He could agree a contract with a European team. He could agree a contract with anybody in 45 days. So just bear that in mind, you know? So I think we'll find out a bit more about Casemiro's situation then because there'll be clubs in for him, negotiating for him. You know, he's heading to the World Cup, like having a good run of form at the moment. There's going to be clubs interested in discussing meeting with Casemiro. That's going to make it very competitive. And I think United are going to hold pretty firm on their stance on this, which is, look, we love to keep you on the right deal, recognizing that for us, we're trying to move forward to the future. It might be different. There might be another club that wants, like, you know, Milan with Modric, that want to have an older player come in and anchor the team. Might be the case. And in that case, it'll be a different role for Casemiro, a different situation for Casemiro, a different position that may suit Casemiro a lot more than United. And that's why I think Casemiro is likely to leave, right? If you look at like one of these, I look at Italy, right? Because they've had a history of being able to get players that are maybe not as physically like up to the same task every single week as we might need in the Prem. And they can be key players there, you know? So we have to think about it that way. But if and my point on that is that if Casemiro will accept those lower wages, because I think he's going to get better offers from elsewhere. In fact, I'm about 90% sure he will get better offers from elsewhere. That's why I'd be surprised if he stays. Not that the club aren't open to it, not that they don't like him, not that they wouldn't, but I think he's going to get better offers elsewhere. More playing time and more money. And a more important role moving forwards. That's the thing, right? So, do Wharton or Stiller not fit Emram's system, knowing that Emram doesn't use deep-lying playmakers in the center of the pitch? Less so, because both Wharton and Stiller, I think, represent a lower level of physical flooring that they're probably not 100% sold on in both cases. When you compare them to some of the other names like Anderson and Baleba, and even like João Gomez and some of the other names we've looked at, the physical flooring of those players is definitely higher than others, like Wharton and Stiller. And I think that casts a little bit of doubt onto them in the midfield in terms of what they can provide. Not that they're not of interest, but that is one of the doubts with those players. Do they provide you with the same level of combativeness, of steel, of all of that? Let's look at a couple of things here. We've looked at these before. Where's the confirmation coming from? Like I said, there's an article from John Cross, and then there's Fabrizio, and there's quite a number of things when you add them all together, including our own information we've been talking about this week about United wanted those two midfielders coming up. But if you look at Americans are used to this year, but playing for a new contract will bring out surprising results out of people. That is totally true too. You have to be wary of the contract year players. And I'm not. This isn't like a shot at Casemiro. Okay, he's older. Contract year performance is a real thing. It happens a lot. They get a new contract, and look what happens. Look at what happens at this club, and that's why most clubs, guys like Omar. Here's an interesting one. If you go back and watch, there's video of Omar Barado. There is video of Omar Barada sitting with the other Man City executive, Chichi, whatever. Anyway, there's video of Omar Barada sitting and discussing in one of the City documentaries. And he's talking about how when the club is winning or doing better or players are succeeding, they always ask for new deals, new contract, new wages. They want to go up, 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 up. And he says those are the times you actually have to be really, really careful because otherwise you get stagnation. And he's talking about how you cannot just give people a bunch more money as soon as they're doing better or winning, and you still have to have your limits, because if you go above that and you keep rewarding them, even if they're successful and winning, then the motivation stops and the stagnation sets in. And it's a never-ending spiral where the clubs still end up paying for what they're going to get back. And that is his philosophy, and that's why we've seen so much financial discipline be introduced in the last couple of years, which is, we're not going to go above the prices that we've set for players because it sets a dangerous precedent. We're not going to go above the wages that we're setting because it's a dangerous precedent, and we need to maintain that financial stability. And it makes people hungry for success. But yeah, you can see it. Salah, Van Dijk, they get these huge contracts. They fall off. They just fall off. You got to keep them a bit hungry, and they're going to stay with that and recognize that as well. So I don't think we'll be handing out huge contracts to Maguire or Casemiro. They're going to take big cuts and big drop-offs in terms of what's there to properly represent their place in the team. And it's also why United are very disciplined in their offers with Kobbie Mainoo, for example, in terms of what they're actually giving on wages in the contract talks to him. And they were very disciplined in their talks with Ahmad, and they're keeping players at a reasonable level of wage for what they need. And that's going to keep allowing us to spend what we need to spend in the market. How many signings do you think we make next summer? 4 senior signings. I think 4, like senior signings. And then there's going to be some addition to that. The scene with the City exec. Yeah, it was PR heavy. Of course, it's a documentary. But it doesn't mean it's not true. PR can still be true. That is for sure. I doubt we'll turn too much on Troy Parrott after his heroics today. But, we talked about these kind of stats before, talking about, interceptions, offensive duels won. If we take a look at Gomez and Baleba, they fit this kind of deeper role in terms of what you want on the ball. They break up play. They're really similar, actually, in a lot of respects, Baleba and João Gomez. There was one other one I was looking at, dribble success rate. If you look at that one, you'll get João Gomez and Baleba like right in the same spots. They're very, very competent players on the ball. You can see that with a lot of the stats, that they're really good on the ball, but also very shrewd at breaking up play. If you go for something like passing, like if you're talking like progressive passes, then they're not bad in this respect. I mean, João Gomez is pretty all over the place on that. Baleba a bit lower. Anderson shows up a bit well there. So you can see kind of the profile that they're aiming for with all this. Ugarte showing up at the top of all these charts always cracks me up. And again, it's why, obviously, 1, you have to watch football to see. But 2, technically, it's accurate. If you look at, though, the game states that Ugarte's coming on, he only has 300 minutes compared to them most of them with like double his minutes. He's coming on in often winning game states, so we're sat deep. You're going to get a lot of defensive contributions, and you're going to have an easier time driving the ball up the pitch and being more progressive because there's lots more space. Those are the game states he's often coming in on. He's actually done all right in that. That's not really the issue with Ugarte recently. The issue with Ugarte is different than oftentimes people make it out to be. There is an issue, but it's Yeah, it's mostly positional discipline for the most part. I would say that's about 90% of it is positional discipline. What he actually does, he does all right, but he's not in the right places at the right time, unfortunately. How many signings do we make it in January? Good to see you, Samix, my friends. And if you guys haven't, go watch the podcast I did with Samix and Andy from Footy with an Edge that we published. I think he published on Friday or Saturday morning over on Samix's channel. That was a collaboration with all of us. Really, really good discussion, and probably maybe more to come on that. How many signings do we make in January? I don't know. One, maybe a loan, but one, not a lot. It's just because we're focused on our major targets, and if they can't attain them in January, you don't want to panic. But maybe one. Certainly, maybe one. You know, it would be great if we can get one of these guys that we really like, but the odds ain't high right now of getting one of them. And I'm still looking at Gomez and thinking maybe, because that's one that has some potential there for the long haul. But yeah, it's all shaping up. It's all shaping up quite nicely for what we want out of this squad in terms of our rebuild. I'm quite excited because the more I hear and the more confirmations we get and the more things like that, I start to think, damn, like the plan is good. One of the things that I would definitely say is that we'll probably see, even if it's not in January, we will probably see our moves for these targets in the midfield, like kind of like Cunha, like end of the season, May. Boom. We want them done before the World Cup. That's been reported as well, but it's definitely true. We want them done before the World Cup. If we can get our signings, our key ones in before the World Cup, that post-World Cup market is stupid. Like, it's stupid. I don't know if you guys remember the last couple of them. The last one was in winter, which threw things off, made it a little less crazy. But I remember, was it 2018? God, it's been a long time. That 2018 post-World Cup, like, transfer market was a disaster. There was so many bad signings that were made on so many huge prices, not just like United, but I'm talking across the board in all of this. And it was part of the things that screwed everything up with Ed Woodward and Jose Mourinho at that time, is the post World Cup market was so like screwed up in general that it just got crazy. And the prices were all over the place. And so you get so many like players of hype, and every agent is trying to drive the fees up and the wages up, and every club is trying to drive the fees and the wages up. There was James Rodriguez. There was the Belgian guy. He didn't do badly, but he was certainly like, he was playing off in like Japan or something, right? And then they paid enormous amounts of money for him. Witsel, I think it was. Witsel, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was Witsel. There was a few others who got some like huge, like massive boosts to reputation from the World Cup, but it just threw the whole market off in terms of pricing when some players were costing so much money for different things, and so many different prices were being demanded. And you could tell like Carrasco, yeah, that was another one. But yeah, it does throw things off. And certainly, you know, if England are going to go deeper in this World Cup and they make a big run, you know, then you know that those guys, Anderson, all of that, they're going to be doubling in price in terms of what clubs are going to be holding out for. Maybe there's clauses and things that help with that, but yeah, the Moroccan players. Yeah, there always is. There's always some craziness that happens. And it's not just like, well, you don't buy those players. It's what it does to the overall market in general in terms of inflation, because people will look at it and say, well, hey, this random unknown player is now 50 million. Well, now that guy is going to be 100 because he's clearly better. And if that's the market for them, then his is much higher than that. You know what I mean? So it can throw things off in a connected sort of manner when those World Cup prices come out. No doubt about that. And there's always a couple of countries that get these crazy, crazy things. Yeah. Hamza, the Baleba basically only wants us like Mbomo. And that's a huge part of why Baleba is still there. Because if he can eliminate the competition by saying, I just want United, I only want United, I'm going to United, obviously that's going to help drive the price down, you know, and maybe force Brighton to sell. But it's just, there's just unknowns with Brighton. I can just tell you for sure. There's just unknowns with Brighton in terms of what they're going to demand, because they sell so well, they're not going to have to sell Baleba. And I know the club are wary of a situation where they go, look, we still think he's like 60 to 70 million. There's you know, he's not a greatest of seasons so far. We believe in the talent, because you're not making the talent decisions based off a few months, but it does affect your price, and it does affect your belief, because if a player still has a ton of room to grow.
Speaking of which, you got any plans for the Dub C? Eyes emoji.
No, I have no idea what I'm going to do yet, because I have no idea how it's going to work out and where everybody's going to play and what games to go to. And since it's going to be so expensive, you know, and I'm going to have to travel, I have no fucking clue yet. So, but we'll see. We'll figure something out by then. Hopefully things are taking off and things are growing, and I can figure out a way to do stuff that will be affordable. Then I'm sure we'll get something together, you know, where people are coming over from England, and like, I'd like to go to like an England game probably around that, because going somewhere where England are playing, a lot of the people in the community who come over, it would be a good place to do something. So we'll see. But anyway, what I was saying is that with Baleba, the price point is going to be affected certainly for United by the view, because if he's a finished article, top player, performing at the highest level, and all of that, then obviously that's going to affect United's feeling in terms of, are we buying a ready-made player? Are we buying still a prospect? Are we buying a prospect, a player that is growing still? That still there's question marks. And that has to affect the pricing. That has to affect how, you know, United are doing with their dealings with Brighton. And from Brighton's standpoint, are they going to look at it and say, well, we think if we hold out, he'll be worth 40, 50 million more in a season. They don't have to sell. And so we could end up in that situation where they're thinking, we'll just hold out. That's the unknown in this situation. Are they going to be willing to sell him at prospect prices, or are they going to be willing to hold out and with the belief that he's going to become, you know, this huge player in the future that they can sell for Caicedo money? This summer, Brighton took the bet and said, we think he's going to be Caicedo money. Not working out so far, but they're still not going to be forced to sell him anytime soon. So it's just that unknown with Brighton that we have to consider. And that's why United have their alternatives in that position, because they're still going to be looking at 60, 70. And the crazy part is, with clauses there for Elliot Anderson and things like that, there's a world where you could end up with both for like 140 million. And if that works out, you can rebuild we need this investment in the midfield. We need to dump this money in and build a full midfield squad of young, exciting, physical, great players that have room to grow. So that to me is exciting. We've not ditched it, but it's been so many years since we've properly invested in the midfield. Like, even prior to Sir Alex retiring, when did we actually really gone all in on investing in the midfield? And not with like guys who are past it. You know, we bought Eriksen, Casemiro, Matic, you know, and then did random like unknowns like Fred. You know, we tried to just throw Pogba in as if it was going to fix it. We've done a little spread out here and there, and a lot of older players thrown in to try to fix it. But we've never really invested in the midfield about building a team, you know? And when we did, it was old players. I'm talking like 25 and under, guys for the future that are solid today, but have room to grow and can be your core for a long time. We just didn't do it. We just haven't done it. That started before Fergie retired. We did not invest in the midfield. Years, man. It's been years and years and years. Midfield, and how old were they? You know, how old were they when we did that? You know what I mean? Like, we've just never done this. And it's crazy because even then, right, we were thinking of Cruz, which would have been the right, you know, a top type of signing, and we passed it up. So we've spent 10 plus years in the dark on this midfield, buying older players or just random players here and there, but without really focusing on building the midfield as a unit, where I think it's more important than ever to get multiple players who are fitting into the team, fitting with each other, and fitting with some sort of format and style. And even when we've invested in the players that we have bought, we haven't done that with that in mind, with this idea of they need to be the right type. So we buy Pogba and it's randomly thrown in. And we buy guys like Herrera and it's random in terms of how they want to fit into the team. And there's no overall cohesive thought that goes into it to say, yes, this is the identity of this midfield for the long haul. And here's 3 players that are going to make that midfield work, that have, you know, cohesive strengths and weaknesses, that cover for each other, that do all of this. We've never done it. We've never done it. We haven't done it for ages. Cruz and Fabregas, that would have been the kind of idea, but we've never done this for such a long time. We have not done this. We've just randomly thrown players into broken midfields and hoped that they're going to fix it. Or we've randomly bought stars, or we've bought older players to fill the gaps for a short period of time. But we've never done this kind of investment in the midfield. And I think this is it. The final piece of the Ineos rebuild is a full midfield, a serious midfield rebuild. We need it. It's got to happen. And it is, I think, the thing that will propel us to that next level for sure. For sure. So it's exciting. It's exciting. I like, the more I hear about it, the more other people talk about it, the happier I get. And I go, great, because I've been hearing about it. I've got all these names, and I'm like, every time a good report comes out from a solid journalist, it's music to my ears, because it tells me that things are happening. The more reports we get, the more things are happening from good journalists, the more it means things are happening. So that's very exciting. That's very exciting. A lot of our signings were lazy and we ignored scouts. Correct. We bought names, not profiles. We bought names, not profiles. And now we have a team. We have a structure. We have a style. We have a way we want to play. And we're looking at profiles. And that's the biggest thing that I've noticed in looking at all the names and comparing the names of the different positions we're looking at our lists. And I saw this last year as well. The names we have and their alternatives make sense. You guys notice that too? In years past, we go, well, we want this guy, and then we have this alternative that's totally different. And this alternative, it's totally different. And this alternative, it's totally different. Now, I look at it and I go, there's a name. There's an alternative with similar traits. There's an alternative with similar traits. There's an alternative with similar traits. So if we don't get our best player here, we will get someone with similar traits, and the plan isn't going to be ditched. It isn't going to be abandoned. That's a good feeling. That tells me these guys know what they're doing. That tells me they know what they're doing. It's not just random. It's all lined up the way that it should be. And the more time that we have on the ground, the more time that they are in place, the clearer that gets. That we want a very specific type of player and another very specific type of player and another very specific type. I've seen it with the midfield targets we have. I'm seeing it with the center back targets we have, that they're good passers of the ball. They're great progressors. They're solid, but have high athletic physical traits as well, but good on the ball. And there's these really similar traits that these guys are all having that we're looking at. And the same goes for those midfield targets. You know, you've got the deeper ones that are good at reading and breaking up play, very good in the carry, very good in the dribble. And you've got these others that are more all action, passing the ball around. And there's similar targets. And I think people keep thinking it's Anderson or Baleba or this. And I don't think that's how it is. It's 2 lines of names, you know, and if we could only get one, obviously that would be, we want to get, you can still have alternatives in that sense where, you could buy a different profile, but that doesn't mean you don't want both profiles and you have a very specific plan for both profiles. I think who we can get is certainly going to be dictating to a degree what we do with the players that we have, right? In the team presently, because we have different profiles in the team now in terms of whether we keep Casemiro, what happens with Bruno, what happens with Kabi, what happens with these players. I think some of that will be dictated by who we can get so that we still have the right number and types of profiles that we need in all these different positions. But it's exciting. I'm just, I'm very exciting. Like you say there, I'm not worried about it. I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I ain't worried. I'm not worried at all about, their planning. I think they're going to get it right. I think they're just going to nail it. And I have practically no concerns. And I even think, will they pull it off? That's still the biggest question. I think that on that basis, it really depends on how comfortable I feel, how confident I feel will be based on how we finish the season. Because as I've said before, I know it's very, very nice. It's very, very idealistic and theoretical to say that we only want guys that only want United and nobody else. But the longer we are out in the cold, the less realistic that becomes. Because we can say these guys only wanted United. But at the same time, we sold them on the idea that we were going to get back to the top soon. So if that goes too long, if we have a shit season, that discussion gets a little tougher because we can't keep making promises. And it's a new hierarchy, which helps, right? The new hierarchy, they have their first full summer and they're saying, look, we're new team, new club, new ownership, new everything. We're going to get back to the top. That's why you got to join this project because it's going and we're going to invest. And you've seen that with Cunha and Mbumo and Šeško and why they wanted to join. That has to pay off a little bit, right? Like, wouldn't you guys agree that what they've laid out, all the things that they've said about the things that have improved, all of that, we have to see some of that improvement in the results. And there has to be some evidence of that for that conversation to continue to work. Because I'm as positive as anybody, and I've said a lot of the same things in here. Forget recruitment. About Ineos' plan and the hierarchy's plan and what they're doing, and that we went through these tough times, and they have a good plan that they're following that will bring us back up to the top. There has to be some payoff of that for you to continue to accept that and believe it. If we have great progress and we finish 4th, 5th, 6th even, I think a lot of people will believe. It doesn't even have to be Champions League. But as long as we finish in that, one of those top positions and have a good season and the performances are good and we're finishing in those positions, I think a lot of players will look at that and say, yeah, I believe. Because then you're not far from Champions League. And a team can qualify for Champions League and not the next year. So it's not like it's guaranteed. I think if you show that progress and you get up and you grow and you're saying, look at the linear progression we are having, you're going to take us that next step. You're going to make us a Champions League club. That's a convincing argument. We're 6th, but if we get you, that's what's going to get us those extra positions up into the Champions League. And in the meantime, we'll have Europe and we can win Europa League and things like that. I think that's a convincing argument. We can't finish 8th and win the battles for these players. Honestly, I don't think we can. I'm not even saying 8th is like that terrible these days, but like we can't. That's my view. Somewhat informed opinion. I don't think we can finish 8 and convince all the players that we want. I think we'll be looking at alternatives, and that's fine because we'll still get better with those alternatives. But I'll feel really, really confident it's about our ability to obtain these players, to convince these players to sell the club, the project, the future to these guys if we can finish in those top 6 positions. We've got to. We don't have to convince them that we have a better project than City or Arsenal. you know, or even potentially Liverpool, even though they might be crap this year. But we do have to convince them that we have a better project than the Villas, Newcastles, Spurs, things like that. That's who we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to put ourselves in the discussion with these other big clubs, you know. So come towards seasons, and that's going to be important. And I say every year, this like wants a Champions League club is almost always not true, but it does depend to a degree on where you're at. You know, if you're close to it, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. What positions get Europe this year? It's not confirmed yet, but it's very likely that it'll be 5th again. Will be enough for Champions League. Chelsea convinced Conte after finishing 10th and convinced. That is correct. Chelsea did, but they were only a year removed from winning a title when they signed Conte, if I'm not mistaken. They've won a few titles over those years. The Caicedo and Lavia ones are fair enough, you know, but again, they had the same thing, right? They had new owners, one bad season, and then they were able to convince them. We've had our bad season. We finished 15th. We convinced Cunha and Mbumo and Šeško and Lammens. That's it. We don't get another do-over. We don't get to finish 15th again and say, hey, by the way. But it's all good, guys. I promise. It's just a fluke, you know. We've got to finish, you know, you have to show that progress now because you made that argument last summer. This one that just passed. We made the argument that it's a blip. We're rebuilding the team. We're going to be much better next year, and you're going to be a part of that. We can't do that again, or the argument stops holding any water. You know, we can't sell it again. We can't do the same sales pitch again. Then it becomes a different sales pitch. It's like, well, why should I have confidence in what you're doing? And I think as fans, we would feel the same. If we finish shit this year, why should we have confidence that this project is going to be successful? What's going to change? You know, what's going to change that's going to make it successful? Because it's better than an 8th or 9th place team in terms of squad. It certainly is. You know, with the patience that I have and the positivity that I have, I've said before many times, I also have quite high standards when I look at this squad. I think it's a squad that should be in the top 6. So, yeah. What midfielders do you want? My ideal pairing would probably be Anderson and I'm not sure. I think I have my doubts on Baleba with the start of the season of things that I've watched, although I was very convinced of his talent based on last year. Anderson and I don't know. I wish I had a solid answer for that. There's pluses and minuses to so many. I wouldn't be unhappy with Anderson plus Baleba, Gomez, Buati, Yeoman. Like I know that some of those aren't as exciting, so don't get me wrong. But I wouldn't be unhappy with any of them because I have my questions on most of those 6s. Wharton as well, even though I have some doubts with him too. I would be happy with practically anybody. Did Baleba's role change this season or something? Some people have said that to me. I can't say that I've watched enough or focused enough. I can't say I've watched him enough or focused enough to say whether his role has specifically changed. You know, some people have said to me that it has. He's being asked to do more passing and things like that, which is not his strength at this point, which is fair enough. And, you know, I would say is not really the role we kind of need there necessarily either. He was also injured. Don't know. So yeah. Another question that's been asked is obviously, you know, someone brought it up at the beginning of the show is about Nathaniel Brown, another wingback. And this would be, to me, quite an exciting one in terms of a fullback. I'll show you what I mean by that statistically. I've watched a little bit of him because people have suggested him before. Again, I don't know if we'll prioritize a fullback. We'll have to wait till the season is over to see what happens on that front if we're going to get somebody. But if you look at like his strengths, when I've seen him, he reminds me of the attacking ability that you get with Ahmad, right? Crazy carrying of the ball, quite strong in the duel in one-on-one defending, you know, and very, very good in that final third and creativity and all of that. Would be kind of an ideal pairing over on that side for a very, very attacking kind of fullback. And I believe he plays on the left. Yeah, left-sided Ahmad. Basically, yes. Yeah, he's a left-sided player, yeah. I'm sure of that. What I've seen from him is quite exciting. He's a left-sided player, yeah. What I've seen from him is quite exciting. So, yeah, that would be interesting if United are in fact looking at him. He's a very, very good attacker. Very, very good attacker. I hope we do end up moving for something like that, you know, later on in summer maybe, but there's certainly still opportunities for some of the young players that we have in the team to secure a place, to nail down a spot, and all of that. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see on that front. But obviously after the midfield is the big thing. Let's think. Was there anything else I wanted to cover today? Any truth in the links? I don't know. I can't say for sure myself that I know on that one. There was a decent report. Maybe it was from Build or something that said we're looking. I'm going to take it at face value for now. I cannot confirm or deny. There was another name that I think I can confirm. There was another name that was reported recently, and I was trying to remember if we were able to confirm it or not. But I think it's true from what I've discussed, and I can't remember off the top of my head now. If I remember, I mentioned, I might have even covered it already, but there was somebody we were linked to in like the last couple of weeks. But I think it's true. Anyway, I can't remember. Any chance of Shea Lacey making his debut this season? Yes. Yes. Keep an eye out during AFCON. Again, I'm saying during this next stretch in AFCON, I think there will be 2 to 3 young players that will make a step into the first team squad. And I think some of them will get a debut. No, not the Sporting guys, somebody else. And I think some of those players will get a debut. So Shea Lacey's, I think he's going to be there soon. I think Shea Lacey's going to get a chance. And there really is a desire to get some of these young players coming through. We just need to sort out the pathway better, you know. That's all. We really just need to sort that pathway out. Adeyemi, that was the one. Adeyemi, interesting one. I have heard some potential truth in the Adeyemi thing. We have looked at him before, so maybe it's not like super meaningful as of yet. But Adeyemi is an interesting one. No doubt about that. I would 100% sign him and throw him out at wingback. And I'm wondering if that's like why we're keeping an eye on some of these fast wide players. Even though it's not a like, is there an opportunity for somebody like that? Because Adeyemi would fit to me in like, throw him out at wingback. And he would do great. He's fast. He plays as in a very wide, creative kind of role. And I mean, he is so fast. This kid, I think he could do some serious damage on the sides. Throw him out in a wingback role, you know. So there's something there. I wouldn't say it's anything serious as of yet, but that's one to follow. One to follow. It seems like we're still keeping those names in sort of wingback positions. You know what I mean? We're still keeping them in mind, potential options there for some of those wingback roles. Definitely. Thoughts on Thomas Frank being interviewed in Sir Jim's garage? Let me just say this, okay? I think the perception of a garage, when you're talking about a guy worth $20 billion, you got to step back a second and think about the concept of a garage. All right? It's probably not a garage like you or I have. Is covered in dirt and there's leaves and there's like a little room and you're like standing there over a workbench, like sweaty and like, oh, you know, let's chat business with a Bud Light. You know what I mean? A very American view of a garage, okay, that I might have. A billionaire's garage is probably like, yeah, like Bruce Wayne's garage in The Dark Knight. Exactly. Like, there's some houses at the back of my neighborhood that when we were going around doing like trick-or-treating, you go up to like these big houses up there. Like, and I mean, some of them are like, these aren't billionaires, but certainly these houses are $5, $10, $15 million houses, like big houses. And you see into some of those garages and I'm like, fuck me, man. Even Thomas Frank would be complimented to be interviewed in a garage like that. They've got classic cars everywhere and they've got all these like, it's a beautiful showroom. Like it's nicer than my house, anywhere in my house, 100%. It's nicer than most business places, probably nicer than Old Trafford, you know? So that's just one of those stories that are like, whatever, man. Like it's a billionaire's garage is, you know, it's not the same thing. There's still levels to this, you know, even for Frank, who's probably pretty wealthy, there's still levels to wealth. So yeah, I ain't worried about that. Could probably, 100% you could eat off those garage floors. They're probably like white glove, you know, nothing, right? 100% you could eat off those floors. So yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not it's just a whatever. Is Frank one of the managers who rejected us last season along with Tuchel? Not exactly. I think there was consideration about whether to offer him. Yeah. You know, the job at that point in time. Look, we interviewed a bunch. We spoke to Tuchel. We spoke to Frank. We spoke to Xavi. We spoke to Pochettino. We spoke to McKenna. They didn't all De Zerbi. They didn't all reject us. There was differing ideas on offer and considerations and all of that. My plan is still to visit Old Trafford, but probably not during Christmas. It'll probably be in the spring. I've just had a few life things, changes, like stuff in real life that are, I'm not at a state with the channel and all of this yet where like it can totally take priority over everything. And there's just some life things and such sorting out. Maybe someday it'll be at a point where it's just like, no, it'll be like worth it as a work trip and, you know, but not there yet. So it just had to put things off a little bit longer probably it's such a thing getting, it's good stuff. It's more like just different things. It's not bad stuff. It's just the realities of like, is it the best time to go and things like that. It's just a lot. It's a lot to do a big travel like that with everybody and work and stuff like that. But we got all our passports sorted out. Everybody's like cleared for travel and everything. So we're ready. Just have to get the timing right. But yes, appreciate it. Everybody's okay. Everybody's good in that respect. What update on Martinez? You know, as I said in the last international break, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play by the next international break. But it seems like he's about ready to be in the squad. Seems like it. I would just be cautious, you know, just be cautious of overhyping his return about what it's going to mean. Because again, you know, they've been so careful, but that's for a reason. Careful for a reason. You know, it's careful for a reason. It's careful because you do have to, you can't be totally sure how a player is going to return from the types of injuries and situations that a player's come through. So, yeah. Minty's an interesting name that people have suggested. Yeah, spring would be cheaper. Maybe the weather would be a little better. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We'll see. All right, my friends, I'm going to end it there. It's been an hour. I appreciate you all hanging out with me on this Sunday. This has been a very nice, positive, lively stream. A lot of people here. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. If you can, smash the like button all the way out, all of that on the way out. It really does help me a lot when you guys do so. We can get a few hundred likes out of this. Please do hit a like button on the way out. It costs you nothing. It's free. It takes just a moment of your time, and it really, really helps. I'll be back tomorrow. Podcasts, other things, all of that as we get towards, of course, the end of this long international break and have a good long stretch of football. Okay? Thank you all for hanging out with me. I appreciate you all. It's been a good one. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Enjoy anything else you're watching. Enjoy your week. I'll catch you all later. Thank you very much. Have a good one, guys. See you.